Hello everyone, before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. The restaurant was buzzing with soft chatter and the clinking of silverware. Warm, ambient lighting bathed the space, casting long shadows across the polished wooden tables. Every plate that passed seemed like a work of art, each carefully prepared, plated with precision. It was the kind of place where you'd expect someone important to be sitting, someone who belonged to this world. But then, there was her. Emma Brooks, sitting at a table alone, nervously tapping her fingers against the water glass. Her dress was second-hand, and her shoes, well, they were scuffed at the edges, a far cry from the luxury around her. She felt out of place, but she had promised her best friend, Jenny, she would go through with the blind date. She had no choice now. The date had already begun, and all she could do was pray that things wouldn't be as awkward as she feared. She wiped her sweaty palms on her lap, muttering the table number to herself. Table 7. That's where she was supposed to sit. She had to admit to herself, she had no idea what she was doing in a place like this. A place where the rich and polished sat, where conversations were about business deals and exclusivity. Not her. She wasn't even sure what she was doing here. Table 7, she whispered to herself again. She stood up, scanning the room, her eyes falling on a sharply dressed man sitting alone near the back. He was dressed in a fitted suit, his dark hair neatly styled. He looked like someone who belonged here. Maybe this was him. Maybe this was Kevin. She straightened her back, took a deep breath, and made her way toward him. "Hi, you must be Kevin." "I'm Emma," she said, forcing a smile, her voice trembling a little. The man looked up at her, his gaze momentarily confused. He blinked, caught off guard, and Emma's heart began to race. Hi, Emma," he finally replied, clearly unsure of what was going on. He hadn't even stood up. It felt wrong, but it was too late now. She sat down, trying to play it cool, even though her mind was racing. "I know, this is awkward. Blind dates are weird, right?" Emma chuckled nervously, trying to break the ice. "Jenny told me you might be a little shy, so don't worry. I can talk enough for both of us." The man blinked, his confusion deepening. But then, something in his expression softened. A faint smile tugged at his lips. "Right, blind dates are something else," he said, his voice low but calm. He seemed to relax a little, as if Emma's awkwardness was somehow comforting. Emma felt her nerves slowly start to fade, though she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. She fidgeted with the edge of her napkin and took a small sip of water to calm her nerves. "Tell me about yourself," she said, trying to steer the conversation away from the awkwardness. "I work in tech," he replied, his answer vague, his eyes darting away as if he wasn't quite sure how much to reveal. "Tech? That's cool," Emma said brightly, trying to keep the conversation going. "Like, coding and apps, right? I'm terrible with computers." She laughed, hoping to make him feel at ease. He nodded, his lips curling into a small, amused smile. "Something like that," he said, his voice still soft. He leaned back in his chair, glancing at his phone briefly, but Emma was too wrapped up in her own thoughts to notice. The conversation shifted, and as she spoke, Emma couldn't help but wonder if she had gotten the name wrong. But why would she? He looked just like the man in the photo Jenny showed her. Just then, her phone buzzed on the table, pulling her out of her thoughts. She looked down at the screen and her heart dropped. "Hey, Emma. Where are you?" "I'm at table 7, looking forward to meeting you, Kevin." Her face flushed bright red as she realized the horrible truth. She had sat at the wrong table. "You're not Kevin," Emma whispered, looking up at him, her voice barely audible. The man's face softened with an expression of sympathy. No, I'm not, he said quietly. But don't worry, it's okay. Emma stood up quickly, her face flushed with embarrassment. She grabbed her coat, eager to escape the situation. I'm so sorry. This is so embarrassing, she muttered, turning toward the door. She didn't wait for a response. She just needed to get out of there, to hide from the humiliation, but as she reached for the door, she heard a soft voice call out behind her. Emma, wait. It's all right, the man said. She turned around, but before she could say anything, he was already standing, his eyes full of something she couldn't quite place. It's okay. I'm sorry about the mix-up. But I'd really like to see you again. He smiled gently. Emma stopped, her hand still on the door. Something about the way he spoke made her pause. She didn't understand why, but she found herself turning back around. She couldn't shake the thought of him, the way his kindness had felt so real. Maybe this was fate. Or maybe it was just another awkward moment she'd look back on and laugh. But something told her, she wouldn't forget him so easily. As she left the restaurant, her mind was spinning. How had she ended up here? With someone who wasn't even the person she'd been looking for? And yet, in a strange way, she couldn't help but feel that maybe, just maybe, this was the start of something unexpected. Would you have done the same in Emma's shoes? Or would you have walked away? Comment below, and don't forget to subscribe for more of these heartfelt stories. As Emma walked out of the restaurant, her mind was racing. She couldn't believe what had just happened. The date, or rather the disaster of a date, had barely started, and already it was spiraling out of control. She hadn't been expecting perfection, but this was beyond awkward. She barely had time to catch her breath before her phone buzzed. It was a message from Jenny, the friend who had set up the blind date. So, how's it going? Did you meet Kevin? Emma stared at the screen, hesitating. How could she explain the mix-up without feeling completely humiliated? A small laugh escaped her lips as she typed a reply, her fingers trembling slightly. You won't believe it, but I sat at the wrong table. I was just talking to some random guy, and I thought it was Kevin. Oops. She hit send, then quickly tucked her phone away, shaking her head at the absurdity of it all. Her heart was still racing as she stepped outside into the crisp night air. The streetlights glowed softly against the fog that rolled in from the river, giving everything a dreamlike quality. She leaned against the cold stone wall of the restaurant, taking a deep breath. It wasn't just the date that had her feeling off kilter. She had been so focused on Jenny's insistence that she meet someone new, but she hadn't realized how much she'd lost herself in the process. Her job as a waitress at a small diner, her second-hand dress, her endless stack of overdue bills, all of it weighed her down. What had she really been hoping for tonight? A chance encounter with someone who would sweep her off her feet? She laughed bitterly at the thought. Life didn't work like that. Suddenly, she heard footsteps behind her. She turned to see the man from the restaurant, the one she had just run out on, walking toward her. He was still dressed in his sharp suit, but his expression had softened. Hey, he said, his voice calm, with a hint of curiosity. I meant what I said earlier. It's okay. You don't have to apologize. Emma's cheeks flushed as she took a step back, unsure of how to respond. What was he doing here? Wasn't he supposed to be with someone else? Look, I know this is probably weird, he continued, glancing down at the ground before meeting her gaze. But I wanted to make sure you're all right. I didn't mean to make you feel uncomfortable. Emma could feel the sincerity in his words, and for a moment, her embarrassment faded. She sighed, pushing her hands into the pockets of her coat. Thank you, she muttered, her voice soft. She stopped herself, unsure of what to say next. The truth was, she had no idea why she had fled so quickly. Part of her wanted to explain, to tell him about the constant pressure of her life, about the struggle to make ends meet. But she couldn't. Not with him. Not now. Instead, she just gave a small, awkward smile. He didn't seem to mind the silence, his eyes still kind as he studied her face. "You sure you're all right?" he asked, his tone light, but there was a warmth in his voice that made her feel less alone. She nodded, even though the truth was far from it. "Yeah, I'm fine," she said quickly, forcing a smile. "Really, it's been a long day, that's all. I didn't expect this to happen." She hesitated, then added, "But thank you for checking on me. That's kind of you." She turned to leave, but something in his gaze made her pause. Before she could take another step, he spoke again. "I know this might sound strange, but I'd like to make it up to you. How about we grab coffee sometime? Just to make sure you're okay? No weirdness, just two people talking." Emma turned slowly to face him, surprised by the offer. Her mind was racing again, unsure of what to think or feel. Was he really serious? And what about the fact that she had literally run out on him just moments ago? He could have walked away, but instead, here he was, asking her for coffee. She bit her lip, looking at him for a moment longer than she should have. There was something about him, something that wasn't like the other men she'd met in her life. Maybe it was the gentleness in his eyes or the fact that, even after all of this, he still wanted to make things right. Maybe it was the first time someone had shown her this kind of understanding in a long while. She didn't know what the future held, or if this would turn into anything more than a simple coffee date, but for the first time in a while, she felt the weight of her own loneliness start to ease. "All right," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Coffee sounds good." The words felt strange coming out of her mouth, but in a way, they felt right. Maybe this was the start of something unexpected, something she hadn't even realized she needed. The man smiled, the warmth in his expression making her heart flutter, and for a brief moment, Emma allowed herself to think that maybe, just maybe, this strange encounter could turn into something more. They exchanged a few details about where to meet, and just before they parted ways, he gave her a slight nod. "I'll see you then, Emma," he said, his voice calm, yet there was something in it that made her believe he truly meant it. As she walked away, Emma couldn't help but smile. Maybe she hadn't made such a fool of herself after all. Maybe this was the beginning of something new, a chapter she hadn't expected but was somehow ready for. Would you have given someone a second chance after such an awkward encounter? What would you do if you found yourself in Emma's shoes? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more of these heartfelt stories. The following evening, Emma sat nervously at a small cafe, glancing at her phone every few seconds. It was the same spot they had agreed to meet at, a cozy little place that had a quiet, almost intimate feel to it. She could already hear the faint hum of conversation around her, but her mind was elsewhere, racing with 100 different thoughts. What was she doing here? Why had she agreed to meet him again after everything? After running out on him the night before, how could she face him now? The door opened, and the familiar face appeared in the doorway. There he was, the man from the restaurant, Liam Parker. He didn't look out of place at all. His dark suit was perfectly tailored, and his smile, though small, was warm as he stepped inside. Emma's breath caught in her throat as he made his way toward her. He was everything she had expected and more. But this time, it was different. This time, it was just them. "Hey, Emma," Liam said as he sat down across from her, his voice easy but steady. "How are you?" His words were simple, yet they felt like a balm to her nerves. Emma smiled faintly, trying to shake off the last remnants of awkwardness. She hadn't expected him to be so calm. She half expected him to be angry or even annoyed, but instead, he just seemed relaxed, as if the whole mess of last night didn't matter at all. "I'm okay," she replied, her voice a little higher than usual. She paused, glancing down at her hands, trying to gather her thoughts. "I still can't believe I did that last night. I mean, I ran out on you like that. I don't know what I was thinking." She forced herself to look up at him, waiting for him to say something, anything. But Liam just smiled, that soft, reassuring smile that somehow made everything feel less heavy. "It's okay," he said. "I understand. Blind dates are awkward enough, and I guess I'm not the easiest person to talk to. He chuckled lightly, and Emma found herself laughing too, despite the tension still in the air. She had to admit, his ease with the situation was strangely comforting. "So, what made you want to meet up again?" she asked, leaning back in her chair slightly. The question hung in the air between them, but instead of feeling uncomfortable, it just felt real. Liam didn't hesitate. He set his coffee down and looked at her directly, his expression earnest. "Honestly, I just thought we had a good conversation, even if it was a little unconventional," he said, his eyes never leaving hers. "And I don't know, I guess I just wanted to see where it would go." Emma blinked, taken aback by his honesty. She'd expected something more typical, like an excuse or a joke, but instead, he was being straightforward. "You want to see where it goes," she repeated, still a little stunned. "After last night?" She raised an eyebrow, feeling a mix of disbelief and curiosity. Liam nodded, his eyes softening. "Yeah," he said simply, his voice calm. "I think sometimes, the best things happen when you least expect them. And last night, well, maybe that was just the beginning." He took a sip of his coffee, clearly comfortable, and Emma couldn't help but feel a little disarmed. He was right. They had shared a weird, uncomfortable moment, but it hadn't felt like a disaster. In fact, it had felt real. Emma felt a knot in her chest loosen, a mix of relief and a hint of excitement she hadn't been prepared for. She leaned forward slightly, her voice quieter now, more thoughtful. "I don't know what I was expecting from tonight," she admitted. "But I wasn't expecting this calmness, I guess. You're not what I thought you'd be like." She paused, looking down at her coffee cup. "I've had a lot of people tell me how to live my life, you know? I guess I was waiting for you to do the same, like everyone else does." She laughed softly at herself, the weight of her words sinking in. Liam sat back, his gaze never leaving her. He seemed to understand her in a way she hadn't expected. He wasn't offering advice or making her feel like she had to be something she wasn't. Instead, he was just here, in this moment, with her. And for the first time in a long while, Emma felt seen. "I think you're doing just fine," he said gently. "You don't need to be anything you're not. It's refreshing, actually, to meet someone who's not trying to impress anyone." His words were simple but hit her harder than she expected. She looked up at him, feeling a warmth spreading through her chest. "Thanks," she whispered, her smile widening just a little. For a moment, they both sat there, the conversation flowing easily now. There were no awkward pauses, no forced smiles. It was just two people talking, connecting in a way she hadn't experienced in a long time. As the night went on, they talked about everything and nothing. Emma shared stories about her job at the diner, and Liam talked about his work in tech, though he never went into too much detail. She could tell there was more to him, but for now, he was content just being here, being real. And somehow, that felt enough. When it was time to leave, Liam stood up first, offering a warm smile as he held out his hand. "I'm glad we did this," he said. "It's not every day you meet someone who doesn't feel like a stranger, even after all that mess." Emma took his hand, feeling the connection between them grow stronger. "Me too," she replied softly, her heart beating just a little faster than usual. As they said their goodbyes, Emma couldn't help but wonder where this would lead. Was this just another fleeting moment? Or was it the start of something unexpected? One thing was certain, though, she was no longer running away from life. Maybe, just maybe, she was ready to see where this could go. Would you give someone a chance after such an unexpected start? Do you think it's possible to find a real connection in the most unlikely of places? Let us know in the comments, and remember to subscribe for more heartfelt stories. The following week, Emma found herself waiting for Liam outside a small art gallery in the heart of the city. She wasn't sure how they had arrived here, but somehow, they had agreed to meet again. It wasn't supposed to be a big deal, just another coffee date, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something was different. She had been trying to focus on her work, but her mind kept drifting to their last conversation. There was something about Liam, something about the way he looked at her, that made her feel like she wasn't invisible for the first time in a long while. When Liam had invited her to this gallery, she had hesitated. Art wasn't really her thing. But he had been so excited, and that was all it took to convince her to come. She straightened her jacket and took a deep breath as she glanced at the entrance. There he was. Liam approached her with a smile, his usual calm demeanor a stark contrast to her nervous energy. "Hey, Emma," he said as he reached her, his smile warm. "I'm glad you came." He didn't seem to notice how anxious she was, or maybe he did, but he didn't let it show. He offered her a small, reassuring smile as he led her inside the gallery. Emma couldn't help but feel out of place as she walked through the doors. The walls were lined with abstract paintings and sculptures that she couldn't quite understand. It wasn't her world, but she tried not to let it show. "I know this might not be your scene," Liam said, as if reading her mind. "But I thought you'd enjoy it. Plus, the opening is really special. It's about the stories behind the art, and I know you have your own stories to tell." His words were simple, but they resonated with her in a way she hadn't expected. She smiled, trying to calm her nerves. "Thanks for inviting me," she said softly. "I don't really know much about art, but I'm willing to give it a shot." Liam gave her a playful wink, clearly enjoying her attempt at being open to something new. As they walked around the gallery, Liam shared his thoughts on the various pieces, explaining the artist's intentions and what each piece represented. Emma listened, not understanding half of what he was saying, but fascinated by the way he spoke about it. It was clear that art meant something to him, and that passion was contagious. She found herself getting lost in the atmosphere of the gallery, her earlier nerves slowly melting away. At one point, she even found herself smiling at a painting that was just a swirl of colors. It didn't make sense, but somehow, it felt right. "So, what about you?" Liam asked after a while, his voice pulling her out of her thoughts. "What's your story? What inspires you?" Emma hesitated, unsure of how to answer. It wasn't something she talked about often. She had always been focused on surviving, not thriving, and it felt strange to think about what really inspired her. "I don't really know," she admitted after a pause. "I mean, I've always loved art. I sketch sometimes, but it's more like a hobby. I don't know if I could call it inspiration." She shrugged, feeling a little embarrassed. Liam looked at her with genuine interest. "I think you'd be surprised," he said, his tone gentle. "Art doesn't have to be perfect. It's about expressing what's inside. Sometimes, I think that's what we're all really trying to do. We're just trying to express ourselves, to be seen. You're here, aren't you? That's something." His words caught her off guard. They felt personal, like he was speaking to her, not just the person she was, but the person she was becoming. For the rest of the evening, they continued talking, slowly moving through the gallery, until they found themselves standing in front of a large piece in the back room. It was a portrait, but not of a person. It was a chaotic mess of colors, shapes, and fragments that, when viewed from a distance, looked almost like a face. "This one always gets to me," Liam said quietly, his eyes fixed on the painting. "It's like it's trying to tell you something, but it's not clear. Maybe that's the point. Life isn't always clear." Emma stood beside him, her eyes tracing the swirls of paint that seemed to blend into one another. "I see what you mean," she said, her voice thoughtful. It's messy, but it feels real." She turned to Liam, her gaze lingering on him for a moment longer than usual. "Maybe we're all a little messy, huh?" He smiled at her, and for the first time since they met, Emma felt a warmth spread through her chest. It was a strange feeling, like a connection she hadn't expected, but one she was beginning to recognize. Maybe she wasn't so lost after all. Maybe there was something more to this than just a simple date, more to Liam than just a man with a quiet smile. Maybe this was the beginning of something new, something she hadn't allowed herself to believe in before. As they left the gallery, Liam turned to her with a playful grin. "What do you think?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. "Art expert yet?" Emma laughed softly, shaking her head. Not quite, she replied with a smile. But I'm starting to get it. A little bit, anyway. Liam's smile widened, and for a moment Emma felt like she could breathe a little easier. This wasn't a fairy tale. It wasn't a perfect story. But maybe it was a story worth telling. Would you give art or life a second chance after it's been messy for so long? What's something that's helped you see the world in a new way? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more heartwarming stories. Over the next few weeks, Emma and Liam found themselves meeting more often, and each time, something felt different. At first, it had been just casual coffee dates, with them laughing over awkward moments and sharing pieces of their lives. But now, Emma could feel something shifting between them, something real. She had never expected this, never imagined that a simple mix-up at a restaurant could lead to something so meaningful. They had started to open up more, and it felt natural, like the barriers they had both built around themselves were slowly crumbling. One afternoon, Emma found herself at the diner, sitting in her usual spot by the window, waiting for the lunch rush to die down. Her mind wasn't on the orders or the dirty dishes that were piling up in the back. Instead, it was on Liam. They had made plans for the evening, and she couldn't help but feel a flutter of excitement each time she thought about him. It had been a while since she felt like this, uncertain, but hopeful. Her heart skipped a beat when the bell above the diner's door jingled, signaling someone's arrival. She looked up, and there he was, Liam, walking toward her with that same easy smile that always made her feel at ease. He was holding a small bouquet of flowers, the kind that wasn't too fancy but still thoughtful. "Hey," he said as he set the flowers down on the table in front of her. "I thought you might like these." Emma blinked, surprised by the gesture. It wasn't like her to be this moved by something so simple, but for some reason, this small act felt like it meant so much more. "Liam, you didn't have to," she said, her voice softer than usual as she reached for the flowers. She didn't know why, but her heart was racing, and she couldn't quite figure out what it was she was feeling. Was it nervousness? Or was it something deeper? She smiled, trying to hide the fact that her emotions were all over the place. "I know," Liam replied with a shrug, his smile still warm. "But I wanted to. I thought it might brighten your day a little." He sat down across from her, and for a few moments, neither of them said anything. Emma stared at the flowers in front of her, feeling the weight of his kindness settle over her. They weren't just flowers. They were a sign, a small but meaningful sign, that this was real. This connection between them was real. And for the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to believe in it. The rest of the afternoon passed quickly, with the two of them chatting about everything and nothing. It was the kind of conversation that felt so natural, as if they had known each other for much longer than they actually had. Liam shared stories about his childhood, about his family, and his work. He told her about the pressures of running a business, the constant push to be perfect, and the weight of expectations. It wasn't something he often talked about, but with Emma, it felt different. She didn't judge him or try to fix him. She just listened, and that was enough. As the evening approached, they both knew what came next. It was a Saturday night, and Liam had invited Emma to a small, intimate gathering at his apartment. He had made it clear that it was nothing fancy, just a few close friends, some good food, and a quiet night in. But Emma could feel the excitement building in her chest. This wasn't just a casual hangout. It was something more. They were crossing a line, moving past the simple coffee dates and the light-hearted conversations. This was a step towards something deeper. When they arrived at Liam's apartment, Emma felt a wave of nervousness wash over her. It was a beautiful place, sleek and modern, with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a stunning view of the city. But as soon as Liam opened the door, she felt an overwhelming sense of comfort. The warmth of the space, the familiar smell of his cologne mixed with something more personal, made her feel like she could finally let go of the tension she had been holding onto. The evening unfolded like a dream. There was laughter, music, and conversation. They ate dinner with his friends, but it was clear that Liam's attention was focused on Emma. And hers, too, was on him. At one point, they found themselves standing by the window, looking out over the city lights. The noise of the party faded into the background as they stood there, side by side, the world outside seeming so far away. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" Emma whispered, her voice soft as she gazed at the lights below. Liam nodded, his gaze never leaving her. "Yeah," he said quietly. "But it's even more beautiful with you here." Emma felt a heat rise in her cheeks at his words, and for a moment, she didn't know how to respond. It wasn't like her to be so vulnerable, so open to someone else's feelings. But with Liam, it felt easy. His words were simple, but they carried a weight she hadn't expected. They stayed by the window for what felt like hours, talking about everything and nothing, the city below them sprawling out like a living, breathing entity. As the night went on, Emma realized something. She had been afraid to feel, afraid to let anyone in. But with Liam, it was different. She didn't have to be afraid anymore. By the time they said goodbye, the night had turned quiet and peaceful. Liam walked her to the door, and before she could leave, he took her hand gently in his. "I'm really glad you came tonight, Emma," he said softly. "I know things are moving fast, but I feel like we've known each other forever." His voice was sincere, and the way he said it made Emma's heart swell. She nodded, her own feelings starting to match his. "Me too," she replied quietly, her voice full of meaning. As she stepped out into the night, Emma couldn't help but think about the journey she had been on. It hadn't been easy, and she didn't know where it would go from here. But for the first time in a long while, she felt like she was exactly where she needed to be. Do you believe in love that moves quickly but feels right? Do you think we sometimes hold ourselves back from the connections that could change our lives? Let us know in the comments, and make sure to subscribe for more heartwarming stories. Over the next few days, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that things were moving faster than she had expected. It wasn't just the way Liam had looked at her the night they spent at his apartment. It was the way he made her feel like she mattered, like she was worth more than just the person she pretended to be. For so long, she had hidden behind the walls of her life, the small apartment, the waitress job, the constant struggle to stay afloat. But with Liam, it was different. She felt like she could finally breathe. One afternoon, as Emma was leaving work, she received a message from Liam. "Hey, I know it's last minute, but there's something I want to show you. It's important. Can we meet tonight?" His words sent a ripple of nervous excitement through her. It wasn't unusual for him to reach out, but there was a certain urgency in his message that made her heart race. She quickly agreed, telling him she would meet him at his place later that evening. When Emma arrived at Liam's apartment, she noticed right away that the atmosphere was different. The lights were dimmed, and there was a soft hum of music playing in the background. Liam greeted her at the door with a smile, but his eyes held something deeper, something she couldn't quite place. He led her inside, and she noticed immediately that the usual casualness of their meetings was gone. Tonight, there was a sense of seriousness about him. "What's going on?" Emma asked, a little unsure. Liam seemed to hesitate for a moment before speaking. "I've been thinking a lot about us," Liam said, his voice steady but soft. "About everything that's happened. And I need you to understand something." He paused, taking a deep breath as he met her gaze. "I'm not doing this because it's convenient or because it's easy. I'm doing this because I believe in what we have, and I need you to know that I want you in my life. For real. Not just as a friend or someone I casually date. I want more. I want us to build something together." His words hit Emma harder than she expected, and for a moment, she was speechless. She stood there, taking in his words, her mind racing. She wasn't used to hearing such vulnerability from someone, especially not someone like Liam. He was a millionaire, a successful businessman who could have anyone he wanted. And yet, here he was, telling her that he wanted more than just a casual connection. It was overwhelming, and yet, it felt right. A part of her had known that this was coming, but another part of her had tried to push it away, afraid of what it meant. "I don't know what to say," Emma finally whispered, her voice barely above a breath. "This is all moving so fast. I wasn't expecting any of this." She looked down at her hands, feeling the weight of his words pressing down on her chest. The truth was, she had always been afraid of getting too close, of letting someone in. But with Liam, it was different. She couldn't deny the connection they shared. She had already let him in more than she ever thought she could, and now, she was standing on the edge of something bigger than herself. Liam stepped closer, his eyes soft with understanding. You don't have to say anything right now. I just need you to know that I'm serious about this. I want you to be a part of my life, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make it work. He reached out, gently taking her hand in his. I don't want you to be afraid of this, Emma. We can take it slow. We can figure this out together. His touch sent a wave of warmth through her, and for the first time in a long while, Emma felt the walls around her start to crumble. I'm scared, she admitted, her voice barely audible as she squeezed his hand. I've never been good at this, at trusting people, at letting myself be vulnerable. But I'm willing to try, with you. Her words felt like a release, as if admitting her fear was the first step in breaking free from the past she had locked herself into. Liam smiled, the sincerity in his expression making her heart flutter. We'll take it one day at a time, he said, his voice steady. There's no rush, Emma. We don't have to have all the answers right now. We just need to be here for each other. He leaned in slightly, his forehead resting against hers. And we'll figure it out together. Whatever happens, I'm in this for the long haul. Emma closed her eyes, her breath catching in her throat as the weight of his words settled over her. This was real. And for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like she was carrying the weight of the world on her own. As they stood there in the quiet of Liam's apartment, their hands intertwined, Emma realized that she was no longer running from the future. For the first time in a long while, she was ready to embrace it, to embrace what could be. She wasn't sure what the future held, but with Liam by her side, she knew that whatever it was, they could face it together. Would you take a chance on someone even when it feels like everything is moving too fast? Have you ever been afraid of trusting someone, but found the courage to try? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more of these heartfelt stories. Over the next few weeks, Emma and Liam's relationship continued to grow stronger, and Emma found herself allowing him into parts of her life she had never shared with anyone before. The walls she had built over the years, the walls that kept people at arm's length, began to crumble, piece by piece. For the first time in a long while, she felt seen, truly seen, by someone. Liam didn't just see the version of her she let the world see, the waitress, the woman stuck in a cycle of work and survival. He saw the real her, the one who dreamed of more, who longed for connection, who was still finding her way in the world. And every time they met, every time they spoke, she felt like she was inching closer to that version of herself that she had buried for so long. But, despite the warmth that grew between them, there were still moments of hesitation. Emma could feel her own doubts creeping in. She had always been independent, relying on herself to get by, and the idea of opening up fully to someone felt daunting. What if she let him in and things didn't work out? What if she was setting herself up for more heartache, more disappointment? The past had taught her to protect herself, to keep her emotions in check, and the idea of giving that up, of trusting someone completely, was terrifying. One evening, Liam invited Emma to a quiet dinner at his place. It was a simple meal, nothing extravagant, just the two of them, but Emma found herself growing nervous as she prepared to leave her apartment. She stood in front of the mirror for what felt like an eternity, adjusting her dress, brushing her hair, trying to make herself feel confident. She wasn't used to feeling like this, like someone actually cared about her appearance, her presence. But as she stared at her reflection, she felt a familiar flutter in her chest. She wasn't just preparing to meet Liam for dinner. She was preparing to let go of the last of the fears that held her back. When she arrived at Liam's apartment, she could immediately feel the difference in the air. The atmosphere was warm, inviting, and the soft glow of the candlelight on the table made everything feel intimate. Liam greeted her with a warm smile, his eyes filled with something more than just affection. It was like he was seeing the real Emma for the first time, and she realized, in that moment, that she was ready to be seen. You look beautiful, Liam said softly, taking her coat and hanging it up as they walked into the living room. I'm glad you're here. Emma smiled, her heart skipping a beat at his words. It wasn't just the compliment, though. It was the way he said it, like he meant every word. Thank you, she said, her voice a little quieter than usual. I'm glad to be here. They sat down to eat, but the conversation was easy, flowing naturally between them as they enjoyed the meal. Emma found herself laughing at Liam's jokes, talking about her day at the diner, sharing stories about her childhood. For the first time in a long while, she felt comfortable. And not just comfortable in the way that you're comfortable with a friend, but comfortable in a way that made her feel safe, like she didn't have to hide anything. As they finished their dinner, Liam got up to clear the table, but before he could walk away, Emma spoke, her voice hesitant. Liam, she said, looking up at him. I know things have been moving pretty fast, and I've been trying to keep up. But I want you to know that I'm not just doing this because it feels good. I'm doing this because I care about you. I think I've needed someone like you in my life for a long time. She paused, her breath catching in her throat as she tried to find the right words. I'm just scared. I've never let myself feel like this before, and I guess I don't know what it means yet. Her heart pounded in her chest, but she didn't look away. She had to say it. She had to be honest with him. Liam stood there for a moment, looking at her, and then he walked back over to the table, sitting down beside her. He didn't say anything at first, just took her hand in his thumb gently brushing over her skin. Emma, he said softly, his voice steady. You don't have to have all the answers right now. I don't expect you to. But I want you to know that I'm here for you, no matter what. We're in this together. His words were simple, but they hit Emma in a way that left her breathless. The fear, the doubt, the hesitation, they all started to fade away, replaced by a quiet certainty. Maybe, just maybe, she could let herself be loved. Maybe she could finally let someone in. Thank you, she whispered, squeezing his hand in return. I'm ready. For the first time in a long time, Emma felt a sense of peace. She wasn't running from her feelings anymore. She was allowing herself to feel them, to experience what could be a beautiful future, one step at a time. As the evening wore on, they sat together, talking more, laughing more, and for the first time in a long while, Emma felt truly at home. Not in the sense of a physical place, but in the sense of a connection with someone that felt like it was meant to be. She didn't have all the answers yet, but with Liam by her side, she knew that she was no longer facing the world alone. Have you ever been afraid to open your heart to someone? What made you take that leap of faith? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more heartfelt stories. As the weeks passed, Emma and Liam's connection deepened. It wasn't just the quiet moments they shared or the way Liam had been there for her when she needed someone the most. It was the way they could talk about everything and nothing, finding comfort in each other's presence. Emma had never imagined that something as simple as a cup of coffee could lead to this, to a feeling of belonging, of being understood, of being seen for who she truly was. The more time they spent together, the more she realized that maybe, just maybe, she was falling in love with him. She had been hesitant at first, afraid of what this connection could mean, but now, it was as if everything was falling into place. She wasn't afraid anymore. She was ready. One Saturday afternoon, Liam invited Emma to take a walk with him through the park. It was a beautiful day, the sun shining brightly, the air crisp with the promise of spring. They strolled through the park, the sound of birds chirping in the trees and the laughter of children playing nearby filling the air. It felt peaceful, almost surreal. Emma had spent so many years in survival mode, so many years focused on just getting by, that moments like these felt like a dream she hadn't allowed herself to believe in. But here she was, walking beside Liam, feeling like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. As they reached a quiet spot by a small pond, Liam stopped and turned to face Emma. He had that familiar look in his eyes, the one that made her heart skip a beat every time he looked at her. I've been thinking a lot lately, he said, his voice steady but tinged with something deeper, something more sincere. About us. About what this means. Emma felt a lump form in her throat. She wasn't sure what he was going to say next, but she knew it was important. She could feel it in the air around them. Liam, she started, but he held up a hand gently, silencing her. Let me finish, he said with a small smile. I just want you to know that no matter what happens, I'm here for you. I've been through a lot in my life, but I've never felt this real with anyone before. And I don't want to rush anything. But I do want you to know that I'm serious about this. About you. I don't want to just be the guy who's here for a few months or a few years. I want to be the guy who's here for you, for the long haul. His words hung in the air between them, his gaze never wavering from hers. Emma's heart raced as she processed what he had said. He was serious. This wasn't just a passing fling. It wasn't just something temporary. He was talking about a future. A future with her. She swallowed hard, her emotions overwhelming her. She had always been afraid of getting too close, of being vulnerable, but with Liam, it felt different. It felt safe. For the first time in a long while, Emma felt like she was standing on solid ground, ready to let go of the fear that had held her back for so long. Liam, she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. I've been afraid. Afraid to let myself feel this, to let myself trust this. But I can't keep running from it. I don't want to. I want this, with you. She looked up at him, her eyes filled with a mixture of uncertainty and hope. I want to build something with you. The words felt like a weight had been lifted off her shoulders as she said them aloud. She had never allowed herself to be this honest, but with Liam, she felt like she could be. And for the first time in her life, she wasn't afraid to be real. Liam smiled, a warmth radiating from him that made Emma feel like everything was going to be okay. I want that too, Emma, he said softly. I want to build something with you. And whatever comes, we'll face it together. He reached for her hand, his fingers brushing over hers, sending a warmth through her body. They stood there for a moment, just holding each other's gaze, letting the words settle between them. As they continued their walk, Emma felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. The future was still uncertain, but with Liam by her side, she no longer feared what was ahead. She knew that, no matter what, they would figure it out together. She was ready to embrace the future, their future. Have you ever been afraid to open your heart to someone, only to realize that letting go was the best thing you could do? Do you believe in taking chances on love, even when it feels uncertain? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more heartfelt stories. Months passed, and Emma and Liam's relationship only grew stronger. The walls that Emma had spent so many years building around her heart had completely fallen, and in their place, something beautiful had bloomed. Their days together were filled with quiet moments, deep conversations, and shared laughter. Emma had never imagined that her life would turn out like this, that someone would truly see her, not just the version she showed the world, but the real her. And yet, here she was, standing beside Liam, feeling more at peace than she ever thought possible. One evening, as the sun began to set and cast a golden glow over the city, Liam took Emma to a small park they often visited. It had become a special place for them, a spot where they could just be. Liam had been quiet the entire walk there, and Emma could sense that something was different in the air. As they reached the bench by the pond, Liam turned to her, his expression serious yet full of affection. Emma, he began softly, his voice slow. I know we've talked about the future, and I just want to tell you something that's been on my mind. He paused for a moment, his hand gently brushing against hers. I know I've said I'm here for the long haul, but what I really want to say is that I want to spend the rest of my life with you. His words hung in the air, a declaration that sent a wave of warmth through Emma's chest. She blinked, surprised by his sudden confession. It wasn't that she didn't know what he meant, it was just the depth of his sincerity that took her off guard. Her heart raced, and she felt a lump form in her throat as she processed what he had said. This wasn't just a casual conversation. This was real. This was what they had been building toward, a future together. Liam, Emma whispered, her voice trembling slightly. I feel the same way. I've never been so sure of anything in my life. I love you. I want this, all of it. I want us to have a future together. She took a deep breath, letting the words sink in. There was no hesitation, no fear anymore. She had let go of the past, of the doubts, and now, she was ready to embrace the love she had found with him. Liam smiled, his eyes lighting up with relief and joy. Without a word, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, velvet box. Emma's breath caught in her throat as he opened it, revealing a simple yet stunning ring. "Will you marry me, Emma?" Liam asked, his voice filled with hope and love. The world around them seemed to pause for a moment, and Emma's heart swelled with emotion. She had never imagined this day would come, not like this, not in the way she had always dreamed, but standing here, with Liam beside her, everything felt perfect. Emma's eyes filled with tears as she nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yes, Liam. Yes, I will marry you." The words came from deep within her, and as they embraced, the weight of the moment hit her. This was the beginning of something beautiful, something she never thought possible. The days that followed were filled with excitement, planning, and anticipation. Emma and Liam began to build their life together, creating memories, and facing challenges as a team. Every step they took was another confirmation of the love they shared, a love that had started in the most unexpected of places but had grown into something strong and unshakable. As their wedding day approached, Emma couldn't help but reflect on how far they had come. She had been afraid to let anyone in, but Liam had proven that love wasn't something to be feared. It was something to be embraced, something to be cherished. And now, as she prepared to marry the man she loved, she knew that this was only the beginning of a new chapter, one that would be filled with love, laughter, and everything in between. Have you ever found love in an unexpected way? Did it take you by surprise, or did you know from the start that it was meant to be? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more heartwarming stories.